Karen to Santa Clara.
This question is for Senator Brower, and it's regarding Medicare. If elected, would you vote for the Ryan plan to overhaul Medicare? Does the recent Republican loss of a congressional seat in New York impact your stance on the Ryan plan? And Nevada has a high senior population as well, and groups, several groups of people indicate that seniors are obviously opposed to the Ryan plan. Does that at all impact your state?
Well, that's a great question. I appreciate that. The Ryan plan, as the only credible plan on the table right now, has to be taken seriously. What happened in New York is difficult to explain. I'm not sure anybody knows exactly what happened there, but clearly the Democrats demagogued the Medicare issue horribly during that election campaign. The Ryan plan, as I think all of us know, and certainly all of the seniors in this room should know, does not affect current Medicare beneficiaries. It does not even affect anybody over the age of 55 who's getting close to being a Medicare beneficiary. Medicare is not sustainable in its current form. We need to reform it to make sure that it is available for future generations. The Ryan budget, I think, on the whole, is a very positive step in the right direction. What it does in the Medicare arena is long overdue. What it does with respect to overall spending reductions is timely and necessary at this time. We need to look at all of the programs, Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. We need to revamp them. We need to revise them. We need to make sure they're sustainable going forward. The current system is not sustainable.
Do you want to follow up? Actually, it would go to Senator.
Thank you. First of all, hats off to Paul Ryan for stepping up and putting a plan forward.
That's true.
One of the biggest saws on Republicans over the years is, don't just be no, what's your plan? Paul Ryan reached up, grabbed it back, went up to the plate, and took a swing at the problem. And by the way, I haven't seen anything from the other side. So the fact that somebody has had the fortitude to propose a plan, and by the way, it's okay for somebody in the legislative branch to have a plan, in my opinion. The fact that he did that to the exclusion of everybody else so far is a major kudo for the elephant team. I like a lot of what he has to say in terms of Medicare. I think that's excellent. You have to go to where the money is, which was part of the previous. I don't think you can pull the rug out from under people who are presently drawing. I think that is a vested right that they have earned, but you have to go back, if you're going to do something serious about the budget, and you have to go back to where the money is. And so when you do that, on an actuarially sound basis, you need to go back and say, those of you that plan on drawing in the next 15 years, the program may be a little different. The program may be a little different for you, but you've got a little time to plan for that. Those of you that are going to plan on drawing in 20 years, guess what? It's going to be a lot different for you. But you've got 20 years to plan for that. And those of you that are just entering the system, you know, we've got an entirely different plan for you. But you cannot continue hoping and praying that this issue will stay away for your next election cycle, whether it be a 2-year one or a 6-year one, for those folks back there. You have to be responsible, you have to tell the truth, and you have to do something similar to what Congressman Ryan did in saying, here is my plan. Now, is it perfect? Probably not, but that's the legislative process. Input from everybody, stakeholders, taxpayers, everybody, and then you say, okay, here's what I think is responsible for us to do under the circumstances, and not continue down the path that we've started.
Thank you, Senator.
If you don't...
No, Senator, you didn't answer the part about the New York congressional seat and losing that seat and how that impacts your...
I'll give you 15 seconds.
15's all I need. You know what? Shame on the people who did the campaign. If they allowed the other side to paint it untruthfully, then they did a bad campaign. Thank you and good evening.
If you don't have a plan, you have no basis to start any reform. The system fundamentally is unsustainable. If you look at the amount of unfunded obligations that are in the system right now, some estimates today were putting it between $60 to $100 trillion when you look at all those programs, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We cannot afford that system. We must take a look at it. While we should not affect those that are in the system today, at least as Mark Amodei said, somebody has put forth a plan. Congressman Ryan put that plan out there. You create a plan so you can change it. don't need it done like they did with Obamacare, where we don't care what your input is, we're going to devise something, pass it without reading it, and then move on. I think we need the input not only from the legislative process, but the American people as well. You're the ones that live with the consequences of what we're going to do in reshaping those systems to be affordable for the future, and we must do it. Regarding the New York race, absolutely not. The Democrats are trying very hard to paint that. They can paint all day long. They have no plan. They have no future. We should ensure that we here, as Republicans, develop the plan we need to, because we can move forward with what's necessary to defeat them, reevaluate that entire system, and make it fiscally sustainable for the United States.
So, Michael, your question is to Senator Amodei.
This shifts things to the issue of illegal immigration. The Republican stance on illegal immigration is typically one of stronger enforcement on the border and opposition to any sort of amnesty for those already here illegally. Do you agree with that in terms of more stronger border security and no amnesty? First, do you agree with that? And what would you propose doing with the countless illegals who are already in this country?
The problem can be looked at and dealt with on a holistic basis. The United States has proven with welfare reform that we can take incredibly complex issues, deal with them, and end up with the right answer. We need to do the same with immigration reform. We cannot afford to be giving people who have broken our laws, slicing off and giving them pieces of a pathway to citizenship in hopes that they will learn to obey our laws in the future. We are going to have to figure out a manner by which not only do we secure our borders, but we have to look at the source of why they're coming here. They come here for the economic freedom. Money has no right to privacy. If you want to send money out of this country, which is essentially a backdoor system of state aid going south of the border, we need to cut that off. The money circulates here at home. The people who want to come here aren't supporting family outside the United States. It stays here in our economy, gets circulated, and we move forward. The entire program can be done. Those that are here illegally right now, we are going to have to look at what we can do, because you can't just tell a minimum of 10 to 12 million people find the border and go home. Many of them have already left because of the economic circumstances in the country. We need to look at if they are going to create a path, then how are they going to do it? And it certainly isn't going to be by the same method that those who choose to come here obeying our laws have right now.
Do you want to do a follow-up? Okay, Senator Brown.
Thank you very much. Let me tell you what I've done in this area, and then let me tell you what I think we need to do at the federal level. As U.S. Attorney, I personally prosecuted illegal aliens in our state, and I prosecuted the companies that knowingly hired them. We have to aggressively enforce our immigration laws. The other thing we need to do is secure our borders. If we don't do that, we can't really solve any other aspect of the problem. Amnesty is not the answer. I agree that those who have knowingly violated our laws and are in this country now cannot be rewarded with amnesty. It is a big problem. We don't have the resources at the federal level to go house to house looking for papers. But we have to get a handle on the enforcement aspect and the border aspect first, and then we can address the other issues.
I think the follow-up for all three candidates in terms of your specific proposal, maybe that it was necessary to fix the whole problem and get us in the right direction.
Okay, Senator Brown, just finish up that.
As I said, the specific proposal that I would pursue in Congress is enforcing our laws. We have federal laws on the books. They should be enforced. What I've done in Carson City in the last 4 months is I've fought for state adoption of the E-Verify system. Now, the E-Verify system simply requires employers to verify that their employees are illegally allowed to work in this country. There are certain federal laws that require that for certain federal contractors. I think we need to expand that. But if a company or an individual is doing business with our state or our federal government, the least we can do is ensure that all of their employees are legally allowed to work in this country.
When you look at what a program has to do, it has to be twofold. One, you need to find the source and cut it off, which is the money that they're currently earning here and not allowing it to go out of the U.S. Second thing we need to do is exactly what Greg addressed. Look at the employers themselves. I do not want to create more federal laws and more federal programs. They need to push enforcement down from the federal level to the state level, make them the ones that enforce it, make sure that that e-verify system is in fact working, that it does in fact not turn into an unfederal federal mandate. But the reality of it is, we have ID cards right now. It's called a driver's license, but if you don't have that, you have an ID card. They can put something on there that allows people to verify their citizenship, and that's going to be the cut. Employers have to have the ability that when someone comes to get hired, that their people that they're hiring are here legally. Otherwise, we are putting too much burden on small businesses, and we don't need to be doing that either.
Thank you, Glenn. I'll
try to follow up with good all at the beginning too, if else what you tell me. First and foremost, if you're here illegally, you should not be eligible for publicly funded benefits. Second, if the problem is an unrestricted flow of water into the sink, you have to turn the faucet off before you deal with the water in the sink. It is undoubtedly a federal mission to secure the borders. That's a combination of physical improvements, that's a combination of the employment of technology, and that's a combination of the employment of personnel. It is beyond doubt that constitutionally the federal government is responsible for securing our borders. That covers 3 or 4 different issues, not just immigration, but national security and also the economy. So that's what you do. But then where I would go after that is there are several states in this nation, not just recently, that have passed immigration laws that are reasonable and appropriate for state action. Arizona's one, Indiana's one, Georgia was one several years back. We need to take a look at this and say what is appropriate for the states to deal with in the issue. And not just we're from the federal government and we're here to help you. And the biggest reason for that is because we made a mess of it so far. There are states that are acting responsibly, and some of that is e-verify stuff is part of that. But we need to also take a look at that 10th Amendment states' rights thing and say, you know, what's appropriate for the states to do here? We're in charge of the border, undoubtedly. But when we talk about what the states are doing, we need to split that mission up in terms of reasonability for what the states should be doing and what many states already are doing. Then after that's done, you talk about choke points, access to education, access to health care, access to employment. You set up something in conjunction with your state folks to say, for those of you who are here illegally, this is how we're going to process you. But until you secure the border, you have no idea whether it's a 12 million person issue, a 30 million person issue, or whatever. But, as Commander Lippold indicated, there are some economic issues in here. And when you stop paying publicly funded benefits to those who are here illegally, that will take care of something.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know this.
And the topic is green energy. It is often touted that Nevada is the Saudi Arabia of renewable energy. Address the cost to the consumer and reconcile the political versus that cost.
Well, the key, I think, with green energy and energy issues generally is we need to achieve energy independence in this country. We are far too dependent on foreign oil, and until we remedy that situation, we're going to be subject to the wild fluctuations in fuel prices that we see. We're also going to be subject to the national security implications that that reality presents for us. So we need to, I believe, pursue more vigorously our existing resources. We need to be pursuing our existing resources in Alaska and offshore. We need to be developing alternative green sources of energy like wind, geothermal, and solar. And we need to make sure that we do that in such a way as to take advantage of existing traditional resources while at the same time pursuing the new sources, and in a way that's not only able to allow us to achieve energy independence, but that does not hurt the consumer. We can't, mandate green energy usage if it's going to cause rates to go up in a way that consumers can't afford. So it has to be a global approach, if you will, where we look at every aspect of it with the goal, once again, being energy independence.
If I can just follow up, but we're seeing the states mandating higher and higher levels of renewable energy, and the costs are significantly higher.
And that's a problem. I think that's a classic example of the government micromanaging and interfering where it's inappropriate. We need to explore those things, we need to develop those things, we need to try to achieve those things, but not the price of raising rates in a way that people can't afford them, especially at this time of unprecedented economic recession.
Okay, the next question, that question now goes to Senator Amodei.
Thank you, Sam. The problem with the question is we are defining energy. It should be energy. Green energy is another way of saying politically correct. And when
Yes.
we talk about our state,